Welcome to the sample recording for EN208 of a slideshow video. In this case, an example taken from a presentation which I gave a few months ago called The Logic of Falling from Grace, Fallen and Unfallen Angelic Logic in Paradise Lost. The idea with this kind of video is that you can walk an audience through a close reading or analysis of a text that you've done and try to help them to follow your argument by including particular visual stimuli, particular ideas, perhaps highlighting sections of text that you might be looking at in detail, and so on. Basically, you should imagine yourself presenting your work in a sort of conference setting or some kind of public presentation in which your audience aren't necessarily in possession of the text to follow along word by word as you talk, but instead you provide them with the relevant sections of text and find effective ways of highlighting the features that you're looking at during your argument. As we click through the pages of this presentation, you'll see that I've highlighted particular different types of words with various different fonts. For example, up to him return and various forms, various degrees are highlighted clearly on these different components of the slide. This was one way that I found was quite effective in highlighting particular features of the text I was discussing whilst making use of the visual elements of a digital medium. Equally, because this is still a text-based project, then you can actually provide an alt-text version of your discussion which will still make this information and these differentiations and these highlights available to people who are using adaptive technology to learn about your work. So I strongly recommend that you stick to a text-based procedure. That being said, then there might also be ways of doing this effectively with colour or with images, and I'll just show you a couple of other slides to give you a sense of the different types of text that I was experimenting with. Obviously, some of the choices of font in these examples are intentionally slightly silly or maybe a little bit out of place, and I think that's no bad thing when it helps to capture people's attention and make sure that they really understand the section of the text that you're pointing to as part of your close reading. Other things that you might do include highlighting particular images that are relevant to your text. If you're working on something like world literature, then you might want to include particular geographic references, perhaps a picture of a map, or a highlight across a map of a route that's been described in the piece of writing that you're learning about and that you're arguing about. So it's worth thinking about ways in which you can use a visual digital medium to help to support your argument in an audio format. And that's really the aim of some of these slideshow videos. We really want you to be able to share your work with the class as a whole without necessarily having to do kind of in-class presentations, and to get a sense of how you can communicate your work in a different form. Another benefit of doing these kind of projects, as you'll probably notice, is that you'll have the chance, and indeed you'll have to, read your entire papers out loud front to back. Now, a nice feature of something like Screencast-O-Matic is that you'll see that it has a little pause button at the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, so you don't have to do all of your recording in one go. If you need to take a sip of a drink, if you just want to have a break, if you're reading maybe poetry or prose out loud and you feel that you're getting a bit tongue-tied, you can actually have a pause, just stop the recording for a moment, and then resume exactly where you left off, so you don't have to keep kind of pasting together different parts of audio recordings, which can be very time-consuming. As you read your work aloud, you'll probably notice that your grammar will start to flow more naturally, because sometimes when you're writing complex sentences, you can start it with one idea, end it with another, because you've gone over and over that sentence and revised and changed it and modified it. And to the point where sometimes it doesn't really make much sense anymore. Whereas when you're reading aloud, you'll probably notice any disjunctures like that and be able to amend them. So this is a really good chance of learning an alternative way of reviewing and redrafting and finalising work as well. I really recommend it for final papers, even if you're not doing an actual recording. Just spend the time reading the paper aloud. You'll get a very different sense of how it sounds. So, once you have made your slideshow video, then you will be proceeding to add it to YouTube. And then from YouTube, you'll add it into your class website. There are instructions on how to do this in a handout that you'll be provided both in class today and also via Blackboard or via the website itself, courtesy of Professor Yoon. But we'll show you how to do that in class. And if you have any questions about this process, please do not hesitate to contact me. I'm Dr. Emma Annette Wilson. I work at the Alabama Digital Humanities Center, which is located on the ground floor of Gorgas Library in room 109A. My email address address is eawilson8@ua.edu, and I really appreciate all the time and work you're putting into making these videos. We're very excited to see what you produce, and I really look forward to it.